Okay. Got the car towed in for a no crank, no start. And another shop had diagnosed this car with a bad computer module, PCM. So I wanted to check all my basics before we can call bad computer module. So right away, my first thing to check is our 5-volt references, which are coolant temperature sensors, fuel pressure sensor, crankshaft, camshaft sensor. You could check any of these. And if we have our 5 volts there, and we know that the computer is alive, we know that it's getting the power it needs, we know it's working properly. At least that helps us and guides us where to look. So I disconnected our coolant temp sensor that's right here. You don't want to back probe this and check it because it's going to give you a different reading, because it goes based off of how hot the car is or how cool it is. So we disconnected it. We put we probed it with our multimeter. We've seen we got 5 volts. Tells me that our computer is alive and what it should be. Another note too is we didn't have any communication with the OBD2 port, so I couldn't read up any codes. So this is the way I had gone about it. Now after seeing that we had that, I was like, okay, we need to check other stuff. No crank. First thing to check is, are we getting any power to our starter and to our relay and fuses? So we checked all our relays and fuses. Kind of show you an example here. So we have our little setup here. Here's our ignition switch. Here's our fuse that powers. We got our main fuse and then our battery. Here's the starter. Here's our relay. And then we got all our other fuses that work into getting this. And here our power control module. So hopefully you guys can see that. So we had checked all this, which came out good power. We had good power. We have a good battery, brand new battery. Getting power to these lines. We got power to our 87 side on the relay, which our relay sits here. And I don't know if you guys can see this. Right now I have my test light on ground. Yeah, right now I have my test light on ground here. We always want to make sure our light's working good, so you can always test it for power. But we got good power there. If you guys can see that, I'm not sure, but good power, lights up. Now we know that one of these other sides of the relay should also have power when we crank the car, which I'm going to try to show you guys that right now. The car will crank because we fixed the issue, but what happened is that this car was, the customer's driving and the car wouldn't, the car just shut off on them. You guys stranded. So let me show you now. Hopefully you can see this test light. Show you now. So that told me, I'm not sure if you guys seen that, but I looked that up when I turned the ignition on. That tells me that I got good power going to these two sides of the relay that I need power going to. So I decided to check my grounds on these. Could be we have a bad ground on one of these terminals. Now we switch this over to the positive side. Make sure our light works. It turns on. So we're gonna check. As you see there, that ground's good. So we know we're getting ground there. We check this side, and we don't got nothing there. Why don't we have anything there? well, we look here. So sometimes you gotta be careful with the printouts you get. You should always get either the OE original one. Right here I'm using non-OE, which is interactive. It's a little bit easier to see, more clear to see. But as we see here, it just looks like it's grounded to our computer power control module. So my first initial thought was like, okay, we're not getting ground to our control module. But if we look at the OEM one, you can kind of see there, it's a switch ground, meaning that when the ignitions turn, this closes, which gives us our ground to our starter relay side. So originally when I had turned the key to check that out, we had no ground. So I was like, okay, well, if I give it a ground, and the way I gave it a ground was I plugged this in a little bit halfway. You always want to be careful with this because you don't want to burn anything out. Plugged it in halfway. We know we got 2 powers that we need, and we know we got our 1 ground. We just don't have our other side to the computer. So I got a wire, got my connector. I hooked this up to our, you can do it to the test light. That way it's a little bit easier. Or you could do it directly to the battery. But it's actually easier if you have the little pointy part. So we got this, and we moved this of our test light, we put it to the ground side, and we gave it ground. Now when I did that, the car started up, and that told me we had either bad ground to the computer or bad ground around where the computer connects the engine frame, which is in that back area of the passenger side, right next to the computer. So once I was able to see that, I cleaned off the terminals for the grounds, and our car started up, and our car started running. So always check your grounds, check your positives, and before you ever call a bad computer or you hear it's a bad computer, you want to check your 5-volt references. And even if you don't have power at those 5-volt references, or it's low power, you want to check all your other stuff. Start disconnecting all your other 5-volt references and test it that way. But that's a whole different diagnosis to look for. But yeah, now we got this car going. We're gonna start it up. Now this car runs. The only thing, he has there's a coolant leak, so we're gonna fix that. But yeah, always pay attention to your stuff. And check all your pins and relays. Don't always believe that it's going to be a computer, or try to find what's really going on. Hopefully this helps. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer whoever may be going through the same thing. Thank you guys.